How is it hanging, fellow Predecessor enjoyers? Did you know that your biggest power spike in Predecessor happens when you level up from level 1 to 2? This is a moment which often decides who gets the early lead in lane. Your second biggest power spike kicks in when you get your first tier 2 item. Then combine this information with a cheater recall and you're basically guaranteed to win more of your ranked matches. If these concepts sound foreign to you, fret not, my friends. For today, as part of our 3-part gameplay guide series, you're going to learn all of these concepts needed to play Predecessor like a true MOBA strategist instead of just a brawler. This is Colonel Cal, and we're jumping right in, so fasten your seatbelts.
We didn't start the macro. It's always been burning since the game's been turning. We didn't start the macro. No, we didn't light it, but we'll teach you all about it.
Bonk! So let's start with the most fundamental and often overlooked skill in any MOBA, minion wave management. Minions are more than just walking gold bags. They're your primary tool for dictating the pace of the game. In our last video for the series, the key takeaway was to farm more and die less. So let's take that a step further, the fast push. This is an advanced technique you're likely executing without knowing what it truly does for you. This is when you clear the entire minion wave as quickly as possible, usually with your abilities. And the goal is simple, to crash your minions into the enemy tower. Think of this as your get out of jail free card, because it forces your opponent to stay and deal with the siege of minions, giving you a free window to make a play somewhere else on the map. Use it when you need to recall to buy items, when you're roaming to gank another lane, or to prevent the enemy from setting up a freeze on you. By hard pushing, you gain what we call lane priority. This is one of the most powerful early game advantages you can get. For example, executing a fast push on the duo lane has a particularly nice effect because right after you push, your support can recall, quickly buy their items, and then get a 15 to 20 second window to gank either mid lane, secure a river buff, or just place some strategic wards. The reason why this works is simple but quite elegant. Once your ADC gets back to lane, they're gonna see a wave that looks like it's frozen in front of the enemy tower, but don't be fooled. The wave your ADC sees is actually slow pushing towards them. That 15 to 20 second window means your ADC can safely idle in lane, not missing out on any minions, as there's virtually no minion dying in this state, and they simply wait for the wave to bounce back. This is the perfect time for you, my support enjoyer, to decisively step out of lane and make a play. Next up, we have the slow push. This is a more subtle move that involves building a massive minion wave that slowly marches down the lane. To do this, you only kill the ranged enemy minions, letting your melee minions build up over time. This will create a colossal wave that eventually crashes into the enemy tower, forcing your laner to respond or potentially lose their tower. A slow push is incredibly useful for a major objective like Fangtooth or Orb Prime. While the enemy is busy dealing with your minion army, your team has a numbers advantage at the objective. It's a classic chess move, sacrificing a pawn to checkmate the king. Then finally, there's freezing a wave. This is a cruel yet beautiful way to deny your opponent golden experience. To freeze a wave, you need to hold the enemy minions just outside your tower's range by only last hitting them. Additionally, you can use your body to push them ahead of your tower. I'd recommend giving it a try because it reminds me back in the Call of Duty days when you run the zombie trains. This forces your opponent to choose between two equally painful options. They either have to step up into a dangerous position, making them an easy gank, or they're gonna miss out on a bunch of crucial gold and experience. A freeze is basically your way of saying, I've won this game and now I'm gonna starve you out. The best part about this though is that it also makes you incredibly safe from the enemy ganks, because the fight is taking place so close to your tower, especially on the dual lane. When you're holding a freeze while ahead, position yourself ahead of the enemy minion wave. This zone control effectively pushes back your enemies, keeping them out of the last hit range, and more importantly, out of XP range. If you're not ahead though, or even behind in farm, chances are you won't be able to position yourself ahead of the wave, so you may have to concede your freeze in this type of situation. Now, we're going to dive into some concepts that might sound complicated, but they're actually game changers. Every hero has moments in the game where they become significantly stronger. These are their power spikes. Bruisers are strong early, mages come online in the mid-game around levels 9 to 11, and ADCs are late-game powerhouses. Supports are actually surprisingly powerful early on, often beating other hero classes. Assassins have a strong level 6 ultimate power strike, but are often required to play against the clock. They need to work for kills, otherwise they're gonna fall behind. Then your tanks are often late game scalers as well, taking a minute to really become the unstoppable freight train. However, there is one power spike that's universal across all hero archetypes. The first and most significant one is when you hit level 2. Gaining a second ability gives you a massive advantage in the early game trade. Your second major power spike is going to be when you get your first tier 2 item. This item makes your attacks and abilities hit significantly harder and gives you a stat lead over your opponent. This is where the cheater recall comes in. A cheater recall is a quick back and then return to lane after you've shoved your third minion wave into the enemy tower. This maneuver is most effective when your opponent doesn't have enough gold to buy a significant item, or when they can't clear the minions fast enough to prevent them from crashing into their tower. After you push the wave, you quickly back, buy your items, and return to lane with a significant stat advantage. You'll be back before the enemy can force a fast push. And with your new items, you're guaranteed to win the next fight. In terms of magnitude, your level 2 spike gives you a 2-to-1 advantage over your opponent. A successful cheater recall can give you an even better 4-to-1 advantage. The dual lane in particular has a unique play pattern revolving around the level 2. Pull the first wave as far back to your tower, or as far back as you can, and then hard shove the second wave. After 3 or 4 melee minions, both your ADC and support are guaranteed to hit level 2. You then focus one single enemy, and your advantage can scale from 2-to-1 to 4-to-1, since each hero in your lane now has 2 abilities at their disposal. Other lanes typically hit level 2 on their first melee minion of the second wave, so keep that in mind. So, once you've won your lane, the game is no longer just about you. It's about your team. This is where rotations and roaming come in. It's time to take your lead and apply it across the entire map. If you're a mid lane enjoyer, you're usually the first one off the leash. Once you've shoved your lane into the enemy tower, you have a golden opportunity. Look for a gank on either a side lane, join your jungler for a fight, or even counter gank. The key is timing. Wait for the enemy mid laner to recall or hit a major power spike to ensure you don't miss out on the farm yourself. Focus on rotating once you hit level 6, either proactively or by matching the enemy mid laner's rotation. Lane priority is a huge factor here, so don't get caught out. Then if you're a jungle enjoyer, you're going to be the king of rotations. Your job is to consistently pressure every single lane, and you should always be looking for gank opportunities after every single camp clear, invading the enemy jungle, or helping with objectives. Your presence alone can force the enemy to play defensively and give your laners a chance to breathe. Take your laner's lane priority into account and start executing some invades. Just remember to stop once the enemy laner on your side regains their lane priority, because it's going to make it a lot more dangerous. The key here is that you treat your first jungle clear with respect. Deviating off your first safe clear often does not pay off, unless of course you have to match an enemy jungler's blunder by taking advantage of it. Once you've completed your first clear and back to base, Ask yourself if you should attempt for an invade, a gank, or just a play that can get you ahead like Fangtooth. Linear jungle clears are often more solid once you've cleared an objective or pulled off a gank. Then, that way you'll be a lot more safer once you're clearing. Now, if you're an offlane enjoyer, you're often going to be the late game menace. After you take your tier 1 tower, your job is going to be to either split push and draw attention to your lane, forcing somebody to attend to it, or rotate and group up for a major objective. You want to focus on being a constant threat that the enemy team can ignore. Focus your initial 10 minutes on building a level lead over the enemy jungler and duo lane. Also, feel free to participate in mini prime secures, but you always want to make sure that you have a lead first before you're consistently leaving your lane. Then to my duo lane enjoyers, this deviates most from the other two lanes, because once their tower is down, they can rotate to another lane for a quick kill or objective. The support in particular has the freedom to roam on their own, leaving the carry to farm safely, while they function as a second jungler or ganker. This is especially vital in our current roaming support meta. Knowing when to do this is important though, because you don't want to leave your carry alone to face a duo that can either outshove them or if they're just simply behind. At the end of the day, Predecessor is a game of objectives, and understanding their timers is a key to victory. The game literally ticks with the tempo of these objectives. The first major one is going to be Fangtooth, which is going to spawn at 6 minutes. Securing this early gives your team a valuable stat buff. To do this, the support and jungler should be working together to secure vision around the objectives. Your mid laner should then be hard pushing their lane before rotating, and the off laner should apply pressure on their side of the map to draw the enemy's attention away from the objective. After Fangtooth, the next big objective is Mini Orb. This objective is a huge sign that the early game is ending. You can use it to run down towers and gain a decisive lead. Place deep wards at the enemy's jungle around the pit to secure vision here. In between these objectives, seedlings are going to be a nice pickup, but they aren't considered major objectives. However, the Shaper spawning at 15 minutes is oftentimes a second class objective that you drive by either after taking Mini Prime or Fangtooth. You can naturally include it in many of your primary objective takes instead of recalling right away. Take it down with your team before everybody leaves. Then speaking of vision, it's the single most important tool for controlling the game. This is an information war, and the team with more information has a massive advantage. Key strategic spots for wards include jungle entrances, which protect you from ganks, objective pits, which are essential for monitoring enemy movement, and deep wards, which are placed inside the enemy's jungle to track their movement and rotations. Generally speaking, push your wards as deep as you can, ideally around junctions that cover multiple pathways. The wards need to be deep enough so that you can safely disengage when an enemy is spotted. Remember our wave management techniques here, because a fast push might be handy to get a little deeper for warding. When teams finally clash in a team fight, it's a moment of controlled chaos. Everyone has a job though. The tanks and bruisers are your front line. They need to engage the enemy and protect the back line. Your mages and assassins are the burst damage dealers. Their job is to eliminate the key targets like the ADC or jungler. And then your carries are the continuous damage powerhouses. They must be protected at all costs. In a classic front to back setup, you try and work your way through the enemy's front line before touching their damage dealers. Dive compositions, however, might favor assassinating the enemy backline, leaving their front line with no damage left. Generally speaking, the game is designed around keeping your damage dealers alive. While a solid front line might draw attention and enemy cooldowns, it's vital for your support to focus on keeping their damage dealers alive. For example, if you're a Richter support enjoyer, you might want to think twice about making a hero play and pulling an enemy in. This very well may give an opening to the enemy Zarus to dive your carry with no protection. The current Predecessor meta revolves around keeping your damage dealers alive, so write that down. Now we're going to quickly touch on some of the more abstract but super juicy stuff. Here's a quick rundown of these concepts that are going to be an integral part of improving your gameplay. We spoke about lane priority and some of the other topics, and this is the ability to move freely from your lane before your opponent can. By pushing your minion wave into their tower, you're basically trapping them. This gives you a window to be the first to jungle skirmish, an objective fight, or to gank another lane. Another important strategy is jungle invading. This is a high risk, high reward tactic where you enter the enemy's jungle to steal their camps, kill the jungle, and deny them resources. This works best when you have lane priority on the side that you're invading, and make sure that you have a hero with strong early to mid game duel potential. And then sticking in the jungle, there's vertical jungling, so instead of just farming your side of the map, you and the enemy jungle each split the map vertically. You farm your jungle half, and the enemy's jungle half, starving them of resources and putting them behind. This is a very direct, in-your-face strategy that forces the enemy to either fight you on your terms or fall even further behind. If this strategy is left unanswered, chances are you can occupy 3/4 of the available jungle. If you ever encounter an enemy jungle invading your opposite side of the half, say when you're starting on the red side, don't answer their level 1 invasion, counter it with vertical jungling. Alright, now listen up. If you find that your enemy jungler is pulling off a level 2 gank, which is a very popular strategy right now, you want to crush their tempo by vertically jungling them. Don't just let them get away with the cheesy gank early on. And then the last tip here is for all our surrender vote enthusiasts. When you're behind and the enemy team is securing Orb Prime, you're facing defeat, you have one last play to make. Instead of following the usual play defensive and farm, frantically scout the side lanes for the enemy hero who just recalled to initiate a split push. Typically, games are closed out with Orb Prime following a 4-to-1 split. The enemy sends 4 players mid and 1 player applies pressure on a side lane, usually causing both lanes to crumble. To counter this, you're working against the clock. You have to deathball. Find an isolated enemy and quickly change the odds into a 5v4 before the enemy's 2 lanes arrive at your inhibitor. This 5v4 offset significantly lowers your odds of a prompt defeat. While there's many more concepts to talk about, like differing teamfight styles other than back to front and dive comp, that's it for the advanced macro guide for today. You now have the tools to stop being a little Timmy. If you enjoyed the video, smash the like button and subscribe for some more Predecessor content, as we cover the macro gameplay tactics found in Predecessor as part of our 3-part series. I also stream on Twitch Tuesday starting at 11:30 Eastern, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday starting at about 8 PM. If you watch this until the end, you're a real one, I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.